bring us right into our meditation. And so again, finding a way to be at ease in the body, whether that's sitting or standing, lying down, could walk. And we'll be sitting for a good 20-25 minutes. So your nervous system knows the time frame. And I will speak a little bit in the beginning, give a little bit of instruction. There'll be a long period of silence. I'll give a little teaching in the middle of our time in sitting, and a little bit at the end. So you will have silence and also some just reminders to return the attention here and now. So I'd like to just open this period of meditation with a quote by the Thai forest monastic Ajahn Sucitto about samadhi, about just gathering, this simple practice of gathering the mind-heart through mindfulness, through our attention. And he says, samadhi is gentleness, holding hands with clarity. Samadhi is gentleness, holding hands with clarity. And so as you come into relationship with how it is in this moment, as you gather your attention, as you withdraw your attention, as the Buddha said, from these many different streams, the way the attention might be drawn out into the world, and to withdraw, viveka, and let the attention gather to receive the body. You might be feeling the breath. Might support you just to listen to sound. But the invitation, this withdrawal, this return, this tending to how it is to begin with gentleness. And it can be very, very helpful to choose a refuge for your attention, a home base for your attention, to be mindful or attentive to the sensations in the body, maybe the simple felt sense of the body resting on the earth, that contact of your pelvis with what you're sitting on, or your feet with the ground. You may just wish to feel the movement of the breath in the body, the sensations, the shifts in energy with the inhalation and the exhalation. And again, if it's not so easy to be with the body and the breath and receiving sound, you might notice the way that sounds are arising and fading within awareness, within the hearing, the listening. So our practice is gentleness, holding hands with clarity. So making a clear and conscious choice about what it is that you're attending to, just here and now. And then with with patience, with metta, returning again and again to that refuge. And if the mind feels a bit scattered, very busy, if the body feels tense or difficult to settle, that's okay. That's so natural, as our bodies and minds are not separate from the world around us. And as we know, the world is quite unsettled at this time. And so this patient and gentle, kind practice of returning attention to what's happening right now is radical in a way. It's going against the stream, as the Buddha said, and might require a bit more patience, a bit more spaciousness, setting down the sense of judging how we're doing or contending with the condition of the mind or the body. However it is now is okay. But we're choosing to be here, to be present, to take refuge in sensation, breathing, sound. last few minutes of our sitting, how is it to begin again? With this guideline of gentleness, holding hands with clarity. So being clear about what you're attending to, what you're present to. Allowing for this natural process of gathering, settling, little by little, of the body, mind, and heart. And taking time to stretch, again, maybe to look outside or look around as we transition into a little Dharma sharing. And so I shared in the write-up for our session today a quote by the Dharma teacher, insight meditation teacher, Dawn Scott. And she said, "All we truly have is our attention, our time, and our karma." And she said this at the end of a month-long retreat at Spirit Rock, the February month-long. I sat just 2 weeks of it. And so we were sitting together, and this was one of the last days of this month-long retreat where the majority of the people had been in silence, without their devices, really doing what you just did again and again and again for 30 some days. And we were doing a ceremony where we were getting our cell phones back. So if you haven't sat a longer retreat, at the beginning of the retreat, there's a cell phone renunciation ceremony, and you can renounce your device, your phone, your tablet, whatever, and set it aside in order to cultivate this samadhi, this gathered attention this process of little by little coming into contact with how it is, and starting also to see the way that the mind works, the way that the mind can get entangled, and that leads to suffering. And so at the beginning of the retreat, renounce the device. The end of the retreat, you get the device back. And so we're all sitting in this room together, holding cell phones that haven't been turned on yet. And Dawn says this: all we truly have is our attention, our time, and our karma. And with this really encouraging us that when we turn that device on, our attention is very likely going to be drawn into and fractured and scattered into a whole myriad of ways. And that our attention is incredibly precious, and our time is incredibly precious, right? We have these bodies, we live in these bodies, but we don't control them. We know as we age, they're changing all the time, they're doing things we don't want them to do, and essentially at some point they will no longer be ours. But in this life, we do have a choice about where we place our attention. We do have a choice about how we spend our time. And this conditions our karma. This conditions the inherited results of what we attend to. And within those devices, there's an incredibly powerful economy. It's called the attention economy, right? Which shows us how precious our attention is, that there's a multi-billion-dollar economy designed to capture our attention and to condition it in a variety of ways. And I know for many of you, this is not news, right? Even the term attention economy might be sort of outdated. There's other terms now that are used, but I like this term because it has the word attention and reminds us about what is actually at stake here. And this economy, this whole field is designed not to condition us towards understanding the truth of what's going on in the world. It's not about sharing fact, and it's also not about supporting our well-being. The attention economy, which includes social media, certain types of news, is designed for our engagement, to capture our attention and to hold our attention. And what captures and holds our attention most powerfully, it turns out, is outrage and anxiety. So this for me is very sobering. It's like when I go into social media, Instagram, that's actually the algorithm. That's actually what is happening there, is trying to engage and then condition the sense of outrage, divisiveness, a kind of a fixed view that becomes more and more imprinted, and then we get more and more content based around to reify or to concretize that view. And anxiety, to feel like something's not quite right with me, with the world, with me, with the world, right? This back and forth. And research shows that that false news spreads much, much faster, 6 times faster than actual fact. Right? So this way of conditioning our attention is often based on maybe untruth, outright untruth, as we know, or a kind of a version of the truth. It's very carefully crafted. And I was reading a paper by Georgetown Law, but there's many, many, many studies about this, that this way that again and again our attention is kind of pulled out, fractured, and then we're emotionally conditioned around this outrage and anxiety, actually really undermines our ability for contemplation, for clear thinking, for sort of a critical thinking about what's going on in the world. And it undermines our capacity collectively for constructive public dialogue and democratic civic engagement. So talking about attention might feel kind of personal, like, oh, how much do you use your phone, screen time? But this actually has a huge impact on what we're seeing right now, right? This war for oil, or all the things around immigration and the othering that's happening. This is all, this very constructed, carefully constructed way that we're kind of caught in this outrage and anxiety, but it can feel difficult to actually meaningfully engage. And so, fortunately, we have these powerful teachings of the Dhamma that are radical, that, as I said, they're against the stream, and that the Buddha pointed to this very thing. He pointed to the preciousness of attention. There's many different suttas about wise or unwise attention. So yoniso manasikara, you may have heard this teaching before, sometimes translated as placing the mind in the womb of awareness. So this is wise attention. Placing the mind within this capacity to be aware, to know where is the mind going, where is it off to, right? What story is it telling? What narrative is it weaving? And to return to awareness of how it actually is. Yoniso manasikara. And in one of these suttas, the subversive sutta, the Buddha describes the way that the mind flows out and fractures. And reading this and studying this, I was kind of struck by how this feels very connected to the way that our attention is fractured and conditioned by the attention economy. And so the Subversive Sutta is the sutta on the outflows. So asava means an outflow. And the Buddha in this sutta says, through unwise attention, basically what is unwise within us arises and grows. And through wise attention, what is unwise within us does not grow, and what is wise grows. Right? Really, this is about wise effort. And he talks about 4 different outflows. So these different ways that the mind, the attention flows outwards and gets kind of entangled and caught, and then a whole world appears, right? I love it that that's the title of Michael Pollan's recent book, The World Appears, because this is actually what the Buddha pointed to, that where we place our attention, that will be our experience of the world. And we can kind of sense into these different categories. So the first one is kamasava. So this is the desire to kind of find our completion, our satiation through our senses, right? We feel like if I can get that, if I can have that, if I can absorb into that thing, whether that's food or any kind of pleasant sensual experience, will feel sort of satiated or complete. And then the bhavasana, so the need to become something. This touching on this very tender aspect of our human psyche, to feel like we're not enough, right? And to feel like we're kind of never quite there. You can feel, wow, how certain types of media, advertising, consumerism really reinforces that, right? You never quite have enough, never quite get there. And so it keeps us running, right? Keeps us hooked in the engine of samsara, as the Buddha said. So the avidyasava. So avidya, right, is the not knowing, the not understanding, this kind of way that the mind gets caught in not clear seeing. And that the antidote to this is gathering, mindfulness, right? Mindfulness is called the flood stopper. stops this outflow, this flooding out of the mind, and gathers it back to reconnect to how it is now. And then Dittasava is the outflow of our views, our opinions, this concretization. This is how it is. This is how they are, right? This is how I am. This is how it's gonna be. I can get very caught in that myself. This is how it's gonna be, right? Ultimately, when we come back to how it is, resting in this aware, open, connected attention, when we practice gentleness, when we let the body soften some of its bracing, some of the way that it has had to brace against all that's happening in the world, we start to see, oh, that's just a view. I don't actually know what's going to happen. I don't actually know how it is for them, how it is going to happen in the future. All these ways that the mind can really contract around a view. And so again, the flood stopper, I love the sense of like stopping up if you have a leak, right? And then like putting in a plug, right? And then there's that gathering, this coalescing of our intention. And how do we do this, right? How do we do this? And I like to think of this as a ritual practice. So the Sunday Sangha, we practice the ritual of chanting together. And then we practice this ritual of setting up the meditation, adjusting the posture, and practicing this mindfulness, this samadhi, this gatheredness, this non-contention, right? Kind of setting down the burden of trying to figure out how it should be or what's wrong, right? It's a ritual. This ritual of sharing Dhamma, coming together, listening to the Dhamma, sharing the Dhamma, contemplating the Dhamma together. This is a ritual. I have a ritual of going outside in the morning. And right now I planted some seeds a couple of weeks ago. So now the ritual is to go see how they're doing, right? And this is as real as anything else in the world. Any news I could turn on in my app, this is as real. This is life unfolding. And not to say don't be informed, definitely be informed, right? But we want to be informed from a place of wise attention, not just getting caught in the kind of snares of the attention economy. I was listening to a podcast, On Being podcast with Krista Tippett, an interview with Joy Harjo and Tracy K. Smith. Really recommend that particular episode. And Joy Harjo spoke of poetry as a ritual, as a ceremony. That when we listen to poetry, we are very much in touch with a moment of reality, an aspect of reality, right? And this is a ceremony of writing that poetry, attending to how it is, and then sharing and listening. And Tracy K. Smith said, writing poetry, sharing poetry, engaging with poetry is a civic action, because within poetry we feel our interconnectedness. It goes beyond those walls of divisiveness that are so carefully crafted. So listening to poetry. And just to say that if we don't do this practice, we miss the ground of our being, which, as you might have felt in the meditation, is this knowing, awake, aware, what we call mind, heart, chitta. This capacity that we have to be in touch, to be aware, that is always present. There's what is moving through the mind and heart that we tend to get so caught by. But with the flood stopper of mindfulness, as we return, we see that there is this ground. There is this refuge that we call Buddha nature. There is Dhamma. there is the truth of how it is that we can touch directly, we can know directly. And so this is radical, meaning connected to the roots, right? Connected to the roots of what it is to be a conscious, awake, aware human. And that from that place of knowing, then we do have a capacity for contemplation, for critical thinking, for civic engagement, for generative public dialogue. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today and being here with me in this teaching. And I just want to dedicate the merit, and then we'll have some time to share Q&A. So if it feels authentic for you to bring hands together and also feel into your own mind and heart what you would like to dedicate the merit of our practice together to, please join me. So may the stability, the wisdom, the compassion, the joy, the equanimity, the kindness that may have arisen out of our time together today, may that be the ground from which we do engage, we do speak out, we do send out into the world this kindness, this care, this wise attention. May all beings be free from all suffering, from all forms of oppression, entanglement. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. And so I'm just going to stop our recording